And good evening. Welcome to All Sports Western New York. Bob Kaczynski within our WBBZ studios. And tonight we're talking Buffalo Sabres hockey, draft in particular. And we have with us the morning man from GR 550, Howard Simon. Howard, always great having you on the show.
A pleasure to be here, Mr. Kaczynski.
Obviously,
How are
we
you,
took
sir?
you right off the golf course, apparently.
I was going to say, I feel terribly underdressed. It's summer.
Actually, this is well-dressed for radio.
This is actually very good for me. And I shaved. I thought you'd be more casual.
No, I have to go with the tie. I don't know.
It's making me nervous.
It's the only way people
very
listen.
official.
Yeah. All right, the draft, NHL draft, and we were talking as we were getting ready. It's so much different than the NFL draft where, this year, E.J. Manuel, people are wondering, will he be the starting quarterback? With the NHL draft, most times, unless it's a high first-round pick like Buffalo had, you won't see these kids for a couple of years.
Yeah, and it's hard for fans to get excited about picks, too. Like you were bringing up E.J. Manuel. What Bills fan wasn't watching college games every Saturday to look at the quarterbacks?
Right.
And when I'm watching Matt Barkley, guess who I saw? Robert Woods. Hey, the Bills got Robert Woods. Oh, I saw that guy. He's really good. You can't do that unless you sit down and watch. If you watched the Memorial Cup, to watch London play in the Memorial Cup, you would have said, I saw Nikita Zadorov, this, and this. But how many hockey fans, even the most dedicated hockey fans, do that? They don't have a lot of access to college games, junior games, European games. So you're right, Bob. It's really, they could have had a good draft, but it's hard to get excited about any NHL draft unless you get McKinnon, Crosby, Stamkos, somebody like that everybody's seen.
Who was the last first-round pick for the Sabres that people got excited about? Can you think?
Vanek. Because you know why? Because Vanek had played here. Remember, the Frozen Four was here. I'm as guilty as anybody else. I don't watch these guys,
right.
But Vanek was here, and it was in the Frozen Four, and he played well, and they won, and then boom, they pick him in the draft. And for me, that's the last time I got excited because I had actually seen the first-round pick play.
We're gonna get into all the picks, but one thing that struck me yesterday is with the second pick they drafted a Russian. And I remember I was there when they got Alexander McGillney, which was like right out of a spy movie because they literally snuck him out of Russia.
Right.
And they brought him to the Buffalo airport and we couldn't see him. And they were worried about the Russian mob. But it's changed so much. That draft now, obviously this draft is completely international and players are coming from all over the world.
I was going to again point out, since you were there, that would again point out how old you are.
Exactly.
When they drafted McGillney, I think I was still having cookies and milk in kindergarten.
I don't think so. I think you were working with Tom Darrow in Niagara Falls, if I'm not mistaken.
But you're right. No, it has. It has changed a lot, and there's so much of an international flavor now. Look at all the Finns, the Swedes. Now people are actually afraid of draft. Used to be you want to get the Russians out of the Soviet Union and get them. Now people are hesitant to draft the Russian players because you're worried about, like Nichushkin, they're worried about him going back to the KHL. But boy, the international flavor has changed the draft tremendously.
Unless you got Don Cherry doing your draft coverage, and then you don't.
Not going to have a lot of international guys. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the draft. First pick, big defenseman. He's very big.
Yep.
He actually was surprised he got drafted the size he did.
He was going like 15th, right?
Talk a little bit about Ristolainen.
I think what stands out, and the Sabres said they liked him all along. They really, that was the guy they really focused in on targeted. And I think two things stand out. One, he's physical, he's mean, he's aggressive, he's got a good shot. Actually, that's two right there, the shot. Three, he's been playing in this elite league. So here's, this young kid playing against 25, 30-year-old men in an elite league. I think what we talked a moment ago, it's hard, the draft, you got to wait 2-3 years sometimes. This kid could play next season. There's certainly a need on defense with the trades they made last season. So I think the fact that his size, his physical play, some toughness, which the Sabres need on the blue line, but the fact that he is that far along that maybe he can come in and play right away is probably the most important thing for Sabre fans to take note of.
Second pick, again, they went to defense. Again, they went for a big guy, even a bigger guy, although he's tall.
He's still got to fill out.
Zadorov, he's from Russia.
Yep.
He's only 18 though, and they think he's probably a couple years away from joining the team.
Probably. He's one of those guys. He's like Grigorenko. If he makes the Sabres, he can either make the Sabres or he has to go back to junior. He can't play in the AHL, whereas Ristolainen could go to Rochester. But he's 6'4", a little over 200, and you'll see a lot of these clips. He's a defenseman, but they show him he's got some good touch down low. He does go to the net. He's got a really good slap shot, but he is another guy who is said to be really physical, mean, nasty, loves to hit guys, loves to initiate contact. 6'4", 200, but they think he can add another 30 pounds for all said and done. Playing for a very good OHL program, the London Knights, playing for Dale Hunter, So if you want someone to instill some mean, nasty play, Dale Hunter would certainly be the guy. But you're right, Bob. I think he's got 2 years of junior eligibility left, so he's more on the back burner at this point.
Let's take a look at the entire pick, and the Sabres made a trade, so they picked up another second round. Sekera's gone.
Yeah, Sekera was always puzzling for me. He's one of those guys where you didn't want to necessarily give up on him. You saw flashes of it from time to time, but never the consistency. So the fact they traded Sekera, it's fine. He was somewhat of a disappointment to me because I thought there was more there.
Let's take a look at there we see the trade. Let's take a look at the board. So the Sabres, they've been rated very high. They've got a lot of high picks. Yep. Couple local kids.
Yep. The Bailey kid's an intriguing pick because his stock was rising. Good size, good skill. Also playing in a very good junior program in Kitchener. And you see down the list the Sean Malone kid, the other local kid who's in the National Team Development Program. But Bailey was a guy he was 62nd in the Central Scouting Rankings mid-season, North American skaters. And then he went up to 38th by the end of the season. So he was not in a huge role at Kitchener, but I think there's some ability and some skill there that he will grow into a bigger role.
And he, of course, the son of Carlton Bailey, who played linebacker back in the 90s for the Bills, although he's quick to point out his dad hasn't been around. He's raised by his mom. Right. And then he's lived with Pat LaFontaine on the island. Yeah. Playing with the Royals.
Played with Pat's team down there, right. Yeah, he had played up here, and LaFontaine's team had seen him play, and they were really interested. So he went down there, and not only did he play with him, he lived in LaFontaine's house. And he talked about how just being around Pat LaFontaine, the hockey discussions, and everything he learned from him, that's been a big part of his development, too. And it's a great guy to learn from, obviously.
Okay, so the draft's over. They didn't trade Miller or Vanek, and now I hear Darcy saying, well, I wouldn't mind having him around next year, which is interesting to say since they're both under contract. What's your take on that?
I'm befuddled. I mean, to me, there's no point of keeping them. I don't think either guy wants to be here. They've both got 1 year left. You do not want to just let them play the season out and lose them for nothing to free agency, so you move them. And to me, if you wait later in the summer or maybe even the trade deadline next season, to me, I think you're losing leverage. I think you're losing value. So honestly, Bob, I think Miller might be tougher to move. I would say to everybody who's interested, give me your best offer and figure out who the best offer is and move Ryan Miller. I think they're both going to be here opening day. I think he's going to try and convince him to stay. I think they'll both say no, and he'll probably have to move both by the trade deadline and just salvage it.
Take a break. More with Howard Simon. We'll be talking Bills football right after this. Hey, Yankee fans, July 23rd, that's 3 weeks from tonight. Yankees taking on the Texas Rangers, 8 o'clock start, right here on your broadcast home for New York Yankee Baseball, WBBZ TV. And I have with me now, continuing our conversation with a good Mets fan, Howard Simon from GR 550.
The only kind of Mets fan, good Mets fan.
Good Mets fan.
It was a good weekend. The Yankees got swept by the Orioles, a very good weekend.
You don't like the Yankees.
Not at all.
Well,
not one bit.
We carry the Yankees, so
it's great. Good for you. Yeah.
Okay. Before we leave the Sabres, your station, you're the flagship station for the Sabres. But it's been a constant Darcy Regier watch on radio, and because you're the only real medium that can kind of provide that. Getting kind of tired of that. I mean, every day there's people calling about Darcy.
Yeah. It's tough. The problem is, Bob, I think anytime it's almost not a conversation killer, but anytime you want to try and have a conversation and get people into maybe somewhat of an optimistic mode, hey, what if they do this in free agency, or what if they make this trade, or what if they do that? Inevitably, it'll come to, but Darcy's the GM. I mean, most people are done with him, and I completely understand that. I am too. So, and that's the toughest part. If you can get to a point where you say, hey, Friday free agency starts. Who would you like to see the Sabres get? Or, hey, maybe they'll still trade Miller Vanek. Then the answer is usually, yeah, but who's the GM? And there's not much faith left in the GM of the Buffalo Sabres in the fan base after all these years, and understandably so.
Well, people have said to me, when do you think they'll make a change? What about Pagula, blah, blah, blah. Unless people stop buying tickets, Why would they change?
Yeah, and then you know what? And I've never been a guy, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm not a boycott guy.
Yeah, I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying that's the only way they'll listen.
And I completely understand it. It's well within your right to do so. I usually buy like 4 or 5 games from a guy who's a season ticket holder. And last season I was like, no. I mean, you know, I don't want to. This is ridiculous. But I'm not the kind of guy. If you like going to the games, go to the games.
Right.
You know, I still go to Mets games when I can, and they're awful because I enjoy going to the games. So I'm not a boycott guy, Bob, but you're right. I suppose ultimately that is where any owner would turn around and go, I got to do something about this.
Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about the Bills, Howard, because GR
Camp's
also carries the Bills. Yeah, camps. Now, that changes your whole life, doesn't it? Training camp.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit different. You know, you get to live in a dorm. You remember the days back at UD?
University of Dayton. Yeah.
You know, living in the dorm. Although you probably had like a big fancy suite.
No, in the dorm.
But it does. It changes it. It's completely. You know what? And you know what, Bob? Here we are talking about the Sabres. They kind of suck the life out of you right now. As bad as the Bills have been, there's a renewed sense of energy. New coach, new staff, new philosophy. E.J. Manuel, is he going to be the starting quarterback? Spiller's going to get more carries. There's a little bit of juice to going to see the Bills now at training camp.
Well, I'm a little surprised. E.J. Manuel, he's yet to play 1 second of contact football. And I hear, you know, from ESPN, Cobb is ahead of Manuel.
Right.
You know, get in a game. That's when they're going to decide who's ahead of who.
Right. No, I think they're probably saying that just because he's been in the league. He's a veteran. But to me, I'm going to training camp. First of all, I would go to training camp. It's Manuel's job to lose. I'm not an open competition guy. I get it. I understand why Marone's doing it. To me, it's E.J. Manuel's job. If you prove me wrong in training camp, all right, Kevin Cobb's right over here. I'll give it to him. But I want Manuel to start from day one, and I would give him every rep and every opportunity to see if he can handle the job.
Nobody's really talking about the offensive line, and the offensive line has undergone they've lost some guys since last year. I thought their offensive line was one of their strengths.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what that's going to bring this year, especially if you have a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and I think I was not upset they let Levitri walk. I would not have paid him what he got from the Tennessee Titans. But it's a problem. He was durable. He was there every day. He was a reliable guy. You got a big hole at left guard, which I thought they might address a little bit more in free agency. Wood should be okay if he stays healthy. I like Cordy Glenn at left tackle and Urbich's fine at right guard, but you've got a hole at left guard, and you got a question at right tackle after last season because Eric Piers, maybe it was because of his injury, his play went down a little bit. Is it Piers? Is it Chris Hairston? I don't know. So for sure, one big hole, and I think a new question mark at right tackle, and that could be a problem going forward, sure.
And the defensive,
especially with a team that's going to run the ball a lot. Sorry.
Well, and with C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson, you would expect him to.
Right.
And but on the defensive side, I can't really get all that worked up about whether Burr is going to sign or not sign. He's a free safety. Mm-hmm. How important do you think that is to this team?
I think it's important just because he's the best playmaker on that side of the ball, and they don't have a lot of difference makers on that side of the ball. He's it. He's the top guy. So I think that's important. I think in the scheme, if Pettine's going to do some things they did with the Jets, that's a big player in the scheme as well. So I think he'll sign. I don't think he'll sit out. The question is, does he play for the 1-year tag, or can they get a multi-year contract? Depends on how much money the Bills want to give him. But I would give him the multi-year deal just because he's the best playmaker. Forced fumbles, interceptions, his range of coverage on the field, his ability to hit and help in run stop if that's what they need. To me, I think he's a very important part.
Okay. Thank God one thing we're not dealing with in Buffalo is what New England's dealing with and what teams across the league. I mean, there's been 27 players since the Super Bowl arrested. Where is this going, Howard, with the NFL, with obviously players who are thugs? I mean, they're street criminals who are playing in this league. They're carrying guns. I mean, with Hernandez, he's obviously being charged with murder, and we're finding out a lot of things that probably a lot of the teams knew about this guy, which is why he lasted till the 4th round. What's your take on this?
I still don't think it's a massive problem for the National Football League because in terms of numbers, it's still a small percentage. Whether you want to go with the 53-man roster or you want to go with a 90-man roster, which they have right now, if it's 90-man, then 27 is like 1% of the entire National Football League. So I don't think it's a massive problem. I'm surprised Roger Goodell hasn't said anything because he came out as the big, tough new sheriff, and I'm not going to wait for the legal process. I'm going to suspend guys to protect the shield. He's been rather quiet this offseason, which is a little surprising for me, but I don't think, even with Hernandez, Bob, I don't think it's a massive problem that'll hurt the National Football League. It's a very, very small percentage. And look, you've covered this league for a long time. Teams will say, character, character, character. they'll look the other way when it comes. If there's a guy who's a talented football player, they're going to think, we'll straighten him out. That's always going to happen.
Marv Levy was on WBEN. He gave his standard. We drafted character guys. Look, we know those guys. They were good football players.
They had issues.
I wouldn't invite them all over for dinner.
Of course not.
You know, they were football character guys, not
citizen character guys.
Let's
correct.
Do I need to go through the litany? Although I will say this. That group of guys, nobody even comes close to what we're dealing with some of these players.
Correct. Right.
Yeah, nobody was carrying a gun.
As far as we know.
I knew it pretty well.
I don't know.
I don't see anybody pull out a gun. Most of them were too big. They didn't need to pull out a gun. Howard, it's always great having you on the show. You'll be out at training camp. We'll have to listen to you in the morning. We don't have to. I choose
we would prefer if you did. We would love it if you did.
If you play a few Beatles songs, Art Wander, who's going to be my guest next week.
That's a big get. I don't know how we're able to get that.
Art's booked quite a bit.
Yeah,
our agent,
I can't get him.
No.
So I said, you got clout.
He's tough. I heard he called your show one morning.
He did, actually, yes.
I heard you hung up on him.
Well, it's all right. I used to be his competition. I can't just put him on the show.
Come on. Howard Simon, GR 550. You can hear him every morning with Jeremy White.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to be back. We're going to talk about Powerhouse Portable Technologies. They're the guys who made the Man Cave right after this. Welcome back. All Sports Western New York, Bob Kaczynski. And if you're a regular viewer of this show and Yankee baseball, you know that WBBZ TV a couple weeks ago, we gave away the Powerhouse Man Cave, which is an all-inclusive home entertainment center, but can also be used for the world of sports, especially if you're in film study. So right now, we're going to take a look at the gentlemen who put together Powerhouse Portable Technologies and hear their story. They're local guys who are making it good with a local business. Let's take a look.
I was out at a trade show in Las Vegas. I went there with Reuben Brown, and we were walking the trade show for new technologies. We came across this company in South Korea, and they had a point-and-click type machine where you can draw on the TV, and it was good for X's and O's, and it showed video, and we said, wow, that looks cool. And Reuben goes, yeah, the Bills could really use this. And so we continued, we went on, we were talking about it, we continued to go through the show, and then we came across this other company that did the same thing, but on a projection system, much like we're going to see. And it did the same thing where you can annotate over it shows video, does 2D to 3D, and lo and behold, before we knew it, we inquired with the company, and they were in our backyard.
I came and looked at it, and he wanted to know how it applied to the coaching side of it. And so after I looked at it, as coaches, we don't have a lot of time. We're very busy during the day. It has to be simple, has to be efficient. So those are the types of things that, I said we needed to go forward with. And then I brought Henry, and Henry was the video director for the Bills, and I've known Henry since 1998.
If we'd had something like this available 4 years ago, we would have probably bought it at the Bills. I had to kind of manufacture my own product there, and they're still using it. But it created a lot of efficiencies for team meetings and that.
It's unique because it puts all of the components together in one unit and doesn't leave cables to be run all over the place and be disconnected inadvertently and so forth. So all of the things that we felt were appropriate to go into a unit, projection, sound system, and connectivity to inputs such as cable TV or Xbox or Wii's or a laptop are all made very easily.
Sport 250 was the first one we came out with. It does video projection, and it allows you to annotate and show game film, show the play next to it. You can annotate with the pad, and the coach can use it to hold meetings and go, in this case, Reuben Brown, Reuben, you were supposed to do this, and you know what, you did this. Why don't you fix this in the second half, and maybe we won't get sacked. And so that's how it can be used in sports. It's a great teaching tool. And that's what video directors do, is they try to educate the people. This is the play, this is what you did, this is what you can do to improve.
My side of it was basically the coaching side. How are coaches going to use this? A lot of the older coaches, they don't want to spend the time and the effort learning anything new with technology. Now the younger coaches, they're whiz kids, you know, they got it down. So we had to have something simple. And it's also a tool that, you know, a lot of the teaching we did was with a laser pen. And you know, players are sitting back there and, you know, they're looking at this red dot. You know, some of them aren't really following the dot. Some of them have a hard time following the dot. So this allows you to put either video, a play on the board, and you can annotate over it so they can actually see a line going from what you're talking about, and they don't have to visualize all the time.
Actually, our marketplace is really in the college ranks because a lot of those folks don't have this kind of equipment available to them, and we can sell to them a lot easier than the NFL. The NFL has pretty much all the solutions already, or they think they do anyway.
You know, but the coaches that do see it, especially the audio part of it, they like it. And in high schools is where you can reach, because a lot of the high schools, they go into their locker rooms before the games, Friday night, whatever night it is, Saturday, Thursday night, and right before they go out for warm-ups, they'll play this video, this motivational video to get them going. And that's the beauty of the Mini. You can take it in there, you set it on a table, you put it on a wall, you don't need a screen. It's got the audio built in, play it, they're out on the field right now and go. So the high school is a big audience for us.
You can watch high-def video, you can do 2D, 3D with it. It's got a great 5-to-1 stereo sound system. It just sounds awesome. And we said, wouldn't that be cool if we could connect an Xbox Connect on it? So we did that. So now you can play Xbox Connect with a 150-inch image, and it is really awesome and cool.
I spent so much time at trade shows, went to probably 30 a year years ago, and the feedback was not only coming from people that first saw it, but from people that were returning customers coming to the show and telling me how much they liked it. So constantly getting good feedback and incorporating that into future designs.
I think it's important for Western New York. I think anything you can do here to develop a product here and bring Western New York to the forefront is important.
Powerhouse Portable Technology. Interesting group of guys. They come from a couple different backgrounds, as you just saw, and they're doing really well, and it's great to see local guys doing well with a local business. We'll be back to wrap up All Sports Western New York right after this.
Guests of All Sports Western New York receive a gift certificate from DePaulo's Restaurant and Ringside Lounge, South Park Avenue in Blaisdell.
Time to wrap things up. I'd like to thank Howard Simon. You, of course, can hear Howard every morning on GR 550. Next week, my old buddy Art Wander will be on the show. We'll have a whole half hour with Art, talking about Sabres, talking about Bills, talking about Art's career. I think you'll enjoy it. That's next Tuesday right here on All Sports Western New York. Everybody have a very safe 4th of July. Enjoy it with your families. Until next week, this is Bob Kuczynski saying have yourselves a great night and a much better tomorrow.